like, whoa, 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 time out. What's going on over here in the corner? Or I see that the attorney's coming in late. They're on their cell phone the whole time. They're not present for their team. I can see the stress and the energy is just emanating through this staff meeting, and nobody's walking out with clear, concise communication and direction for their next action, which causes a vicious cycle of team members constantly delegating up and or not really having that true empowerment. I to really train team members at the end of every direction or conversation, you do a mini debrief, you clarify and verify. So attorney, what I heard you say, you want me to call opposing counsel first, and then you want me to do X, Y, and Z with the courts and X, Y, and Z with the client. That causes the attorney to pause, and they're like, actually, I may have said that, but now that you reflected that back to me, first call the court, then do this. Do not call the client until you and I debrief in the daily huddle and just give me the 411 on X, Y, and Z. Without that debrief, what I like to call and clarify and verify, they go back to their desk and they're not clear on what their next right move is. And then they send a 4-paragraph email to the attorney when they're in back-to-back meetings in court and what have you. And 24 hours go by and nothing's been done with the matter.
Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. The Free Lawyer Podcast is designed for the lawyer, entrepreneur, or professional who is in some way unfulfilled, stressed, or stuck, and is looking for something better. We will discuss various blocks that limit us from achieving the personal freedom that we all desire, but have not yet fully experienced. And we will give actionable steps to free yourself from them. Are you looking to achieve a new level of success? If so, this podcast is for you. Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of The Free Lawyer. And for those of you who are listening for the first time, I'm Gary Miles, I'm your host. And what I try to do in this podcast is to get as much helpful information to you lawyers, to we lawyers, as I possibly can to help make your practice a little less stressful, a little more fulfilling, to turn that stress into success and that frustration into fulfillment. So I try to get helpful messages to you on Mondays, and today is a Thursday guest episode. You'll hear some incredible information. So join in and listen. If you like what you hear, please hit the follow button so you get the episodes dropped to you on Mondays and Thursdays. And if you like what you hear, please leave a rating and review. I'd really appreciate it. Today we have a great episode. I have Molly McGrath with us. Molly has coached and consulted and directed presidents and founders of national organizations and over 5,000 law firms in executive level leadership, improvement, and team empowerment. And she brings incredible experience and knowledge. She's also has her own podcast that is highly rated, has written 3 #1 Amazon bestseller books, an established legal blogger, and 27 years of experience, which is simply amazing. So Molly, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, Gary. I'm already taking notes. I love it. Stress into success, frustration into fulfillment. Beautiful.
So tell me, Molly, a little bit about what you do and how you came to be where you are today. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. So I'm the founder of Hiring and Empowering Solutions. As you said, I've been in the legal field since 1997. I started out at the tender age of 27, working for a legal organization that was focused on supporting estate planning and elder law attorneys. So very niche specific, asset protection, what have you. I started out as an administrative assistant and found out very quickly my first assignment was to go to a legal organization, and I would go there and my job was to break bread. And I was part of the member success team and really meet with the attorney members, meet with their team, make them feel welcome, feel supported, all that. Well, quickly I found out that the stories that are on TV about attorneys, that they're loaded, money grubbing, arrogant, all the stories that you see, it's all about the money, flashy cars, living the life, and all that could not be further from the truth. For mainly, we were supporting solo practitioners, mid-sized firms. I'd sit at the coffee breaks and I'd hear from the attorneys, man alive, my practice would be great, but for the employees. And then I turned to the right and talked to the employees, and they'd say, my job would be great, but for the attorney. They were control freaks. They won't let me help them. They won't let me support you. And to your point, I constantly see their frustration. I see that they're stressed out all the time. And here I am, and I know the solution. I know the answer to support them so they could be working in their unique ability, but they won't let go of control. I'm like, there's a massive disconnect here. They both want the same thing, but they're not speaking the same language. The attorney is constantly busy, 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 looking at their calendar, watching them all day, and they don't have quote unquote time to train their people. They don't have time to pour into their people, and their people are sitting there, brokenhearted, honestly, to see how stressed out their attorney is and how hard they're working, and they can't help because they don't have time to stop and give them the space, the grace, and their presence to really create a path and plan to get on the same playing field. And so I became
Sometimes I've seen
incredible. Yeah.
sometimes I've seen that stress that the lawyer feels gets projected onto the paralegal or the administrative assistant. And that creates additional stress for the paralegal because now they're working under their own pressure that of time deadlines and anxiety that the lawyer may have imposed on them.
Well, yeah, and the saddest part about that is the ultimate stress is energetically transferred to the client. They're calling your law firm and they need your help. They assume you're the expert in your industry. No small feat to get out of law school, get licensed with the bar, all that. And, I always say money is energy, and you're responsible for the energy you bring in a room and leave in the room. So you got to stressed out attorneys, stressed out paralegals, stressed out receptionists, what have you. And the client is feeling that subconsciously. And ultimately, it impacts profitability, process, and production.
It does. It does. And I've seen from my many conversations with lawyers the terrible stress they're under, feeling like they have no time to, and perhaps not as willing as they should be to delegate to their paralegal or support staff who can really help them and want to help them. What do you see as a solution, and what role do you play? How do you help lawyers and law firms with that?
I believe what I'm incredibly passionate with, none of us are going to wake up and have more time. We've all tried so incredibly hard to create 9 days in a week and 42 hours in a day. That's not the answer, because if we're given that, we're still going to operate and behave the way that we do. So, my goal is always to get the attorneys to give their team time. The time to change a tire is not when you're going 90 miles down the highway. One of my favorite quotes is, if you don't make time for your wellness, you'll be forced to make time for your illness. And this really goes back to employee engagement, employee empowerment, getting an ROI on the people that you're paying, and in addition, for you to be able to impact profitability and retention. We all know this. The legal space, the unemployment rate is 0.46%. And it's not going to change. The statistics that are out there, they're not going to change. People no longer are willing to work just for a paycheck. They want to be part of something. They want to support. So the solution I provide is really to train the attorney to give your team, your internal employees, whether overseas, stateside, what have you, independent contractors, the same respect that you do for a client appointment. You have to carve out that time for the power of the pause that I talk about often. Analogy, I'll say a lot of times, the attorney, You don't go on a Super Bowl playing field and just crush it and win the game. No, there are locker room huddles, there are practice, there are timeouts, there are half times. Using this sports analogy, they spend extreme time after each game watching film and doing a deep dive analysis. I'm not expecting the attorney to do all that. But what I am doing is I start with them having a weekly, what I like to call a stakeholders meeting, because your employee, right down to the receptionist, I'm not saying shareholders, they're a stakeholder in the business. You want them to take extreme ownership of their role, especially the person that's a director of first impressions on the front line. They're your sales force.
They are indeed. You talk about the 66-day business turnaround program. What is that, and how does it help law firms?
Yes. And 66 days is a very intentional number. Way back when it takes 30 days to create a habit or break a habit. Now, the latest studies are saying that with all the data and the information and distractions that we have, that it's 66 days. So double the time to create habits. I don't like to focus on breaking habits. I like to focus on creating. So we take a very methodical process, 12 weeks. And the biggest part of this, we focus on the 4 Ps: people, process, production, which impacts profitability. Especially in the personal service industry, like a law firm, it's wholly dependent on your people if you are on a path of growing, maintaining, sustaining, or scaling up, whatever your definition of success is. So it starts with the very methodical, and this is the hardest part. I tell the attorneys we have to kick off with a 90-minute strategic session. Then your biggest part is to give your team hardwire time every single week. And it's not that hard. A weekly meeting that is managed, led, and facilitated by me, where I'm training your team to walk and talk and act like a CEO, like a CXO is the latest term that I've been seeing out in the marketplace. And then give them time, 15 minutes for a military stand-up daily huddle, once again, that they're managing, leading, and facilitating. And in 12 weeks, you will have the entrepreneurial and visionary freedom that you deserve and you're craving.
And so these meetings, you lead them as the facilitator? They would be individual meetings between the lawyer and, for example, a staff member, or would they be with the whole firm?
It depends. Great question. It depends. It's up to the attorney. First and foremost, we got to figure out where your greatest pain points are. Not everybody has a C-suite on staff. They don't have a CEO, a CFO, things of that nature. If they do not, then I really have them appoint a team leader, if you will, somebody that I can put and train them into walk, talk, and act like a CEO, within director of operations, director of client success, whatever that might be. And so they determine who's on there. It's not conducive to shut down the entire firm, especially when you have billable hours or what have you. But it is the key person that you are going to hand the baton to eventually, once you are confident and competent that your law firm is being ran the way that you like to. And then at that point, I try to allow the attorney to bow out when they need to. It really depends on the attorney where they're sitting. If they're sitting in a place of constant fear and worry and control freak, for lack of a better term, where they feel like they need to white knuckle things, or some of my favorite law firms to work with is they have hit the point where they're ready to wave the white flag and say, I can't do it anymore. I need out of operations, because by and large, yes, the client work is very stressful, especially for trial attorneys or what have you. But at the end of the day, it's really about the process and production, because the client work becomes incredibly stressful outside of the emotions and really carrying that for your clients. But how we're doing, what are we missing deadlines? Are we missing hearings? Are we prepared for a trial? All the things your team can lead for you. They're
Uh,
dying to.
You talk about employee engagement and problems with that. First off, what do you mean by employee engagement? And what are the kind of problems that lawyers face with employee engagement?
Great question. My definition that I write about in my books is an entrepreneur and entrepreneur world. I've been using that term since 1997. And an entrepreneur is somebody who has it in their bones, in their blood. They use terminology like our clients, they use terminology like our law firm. That is when you know that you have an engaged team members. An engaged team member looks like, walks like, talks like when they show up at your meetings or they knock on your door for the got a minute, they're coming to you with proposed solutions. They are coming to you from a place of the bottom line. They're not coming in with a pile of emotions and drama and delegating back up to an engaged team. They take their work very seriously, but it's not about just the tasks that are in the CRM. They are
They feel like they're part of the team. They're part of the company. They're not owners, but they feel like they're invested in it.
Yeah, they feel like they're invested in it because their owner is invested in them. They don't resent spending time with them. And that's where law firm owners really can do that 2 millimeter shift. If you're sitting in a place where you resent your team, you feel like they need too much time from you, or you feel like they're constantly delegating back up to you, or they're only doing enough to survive, it might be a beautiful opportunity and a great invitation for you to take a step back and really, what I always say, like, get in the boardroom, get in the conference room, get to the whiteboard and map out where the process is, where it begins and ends, and where they can step up and lead because they're dying to. I've talked to thousands of team members across the nation. I have a law firm admin boot camp where I train just employees within a law firm, no attorneys in there, to really have their attorneys back and step up and lead. And I consistently hear for them if only they would give us time and their full attention and allow for us to facilitate a conversation because we see all the problems, we see all the frustrations, and I always train the answers in the room. You don't need to hire big consultants. I'm a huge fan of coaching and consulting, absolutely, obviously. But at the end of the day, it only goes so far if it's you and your consultant and you're not bringing your team members into the fold and really working on their mindset and ownership.
So what you do that is different than just a consultant is you actually facilitate meetings with the staff to help them grow and learn how to become part of the team.
Yes, I'm incredibly passionate about staff, for a lack of better term, the team members. I was fortunate at my time, back in the late 90s when coaching was not a street term, especially in the legal space, that I had a boss that poured into me. Personal development, professional development, mindset, really brought me in and let me shadow every single one of his client meetings, shadow all of his speaking events. And I was in tears by day 3. I'm like, this man hasn't had a glass of water. Every time he walks out of a meeting, there's a line of people waiting to delegate up to him. So I like the shadow process, is what I call teach, show, do, go, grow. When I can shadow and sit in a meeting and see the interaction, when Susie's looking down and not making eye contact and not saying anything or not taking one single note or what have you, I'm like, whoa, 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 time out. What's going on over here in the corner? Or I see that the attorney's coming in late. They're on their cell phone the whole time. They're not present for their team. I can see the stress and the energy is just emanating through this staff meeting, and nobody's walking out with clear, concise communication and direction for their next action, which causes a vicious cycle of team members constantly delegating up and or not really having that true empowerment and
What do
emboldenment
you
to
mean
own
by
the role.
delegating up?
So they get a task, the attorney gives it to them, there's no clear direction. The employee didn't take responsibility for what they heard. I had to really train team members at the end of every direction or conversation. You do a mini debrief, you clarify and verify. So, attorney, what I heard you say, you want me to call opposing counsel first, and then you want me to do X, Y, and Z with the courts and X, Y, and Z with the client. that causes the attorney to pause, and they're like, actually, I may have said that, but now that you reflected that back to me, first call the court, then do this. Do not call the client until you and I debrief in the daily huddle and just give me the 411 on X, Y, and Z. Without that debrief, what I like to call and clarify and verify, they go back to their desk and they're not clear on what their next right move is. And then they send a 4-paragraph email to the attorney when they're in back-to-back meetings in court and what have you. And 24 hours go by and nothing's been done with the matter.
Gotcha. Did your program work on relationships between junior lawyers and partners as well, or primarily with paralegals and legal assistants?
Most of the people in my program are marketing coordinators, office manager, professional law firm administrators, receptionists. I'm from all over the country, especially if people are using overseas. Not many attorneys are in the program or junior because that's not a good use of their time. We want them focusing on client work and billable hours. So I'm training their team. What law firm owners tell me is they want to delegate their team to me to train them up.
What are some of the biggest mistakes law firms make and law firm owners when it comes to hiring and training their staff, and how can those problems be overcome?
First and foremost, they wait too long. They wait until the pressure cooker pops. And
That's true.
so they know that they need to hire, but they're kind of playing the chicken and the egg. Well, we need money, or they feel like we don't really have our processes. We need to get ready to hire an associate or paralegal. I need to make sure everything's perfect in a bow and a package. And then they start to hire and it's too late. They have lost hours and dollars all over the place within the firm. Number two is they try to do it themselves. Part of my practice is I do flat fee recruiting, and I'm not saying that you have to hire a professional recruiter, but they try to do it themselves without empowering and engaging somebody on their team. Number three, the process is way too long. Time kills all deals. So they are spending too much time reviewing resumes, rejecting people because of resumes. They put the ad out there. They don't have time till Saturday at 2 o'clock, and they put the ad out there on Monday or working nights and weekends. And by that, if they're a rock star candidate, they're gone. They're already hired and they're no longer in the pipeline. So they're using outdated models for, number one, waiting too long. Number two, the ads that they're putting out there are incredibly traditional and outdated. They're making them way too long. They're making them very one-sided. Anymore recruiting and hiring is sales, 100% sales, especially in this unemployment market with the legal profession, under 1%. So you have to write your ads anymore with really painting the picture like a Match.com ad, like you're trying to win your spouse, your forever person. It needs to be painting the picture of what's in it for the candidate. And then also, of course, you'll have the requirements with license, bar, state specific, all the years of service, in niche practice industry, all that.
What solutions do you have? What do you think is the better process? You told me what the problems were. What do you suggest is the better process?
Number one, if you are feeling the niggle and you are feeling the stress and you are on the brink of burnout, the time to hire is now. And start to look, because the process could take 3 months, 4 months, what have you. So you need to start really looking at it. You don't need a perfect job description, SOP, none of that. Just start getting the ads out and retain a recruiter of some sort, either internally, externally, whatever, but it can't be done by you as the attorney. Because it is vicious out there. It's shark infested waters. You need somebody who is working on this, pretty much full time if you're serious about hiring, because sitting here today, by the time you go through the process, they might not be hired for 3 months or 4 months. And then lastly, I would say that you have to streamline your interviewing process. write the ad that is very much painting the picture of your culture. Make sure that it's very SEO rich because anymore it's smartphone applying, and don't spend so much time reading resumes. 9 out of 10 people, when I call them at their resume, they're like, "Where'd you get that resume from?" The Indeeds, the ZipRecruiters, LinkedIn, their platforms and their algorithms are outdated. And a lot of times the resume that you're seeing is not the one that's out there because people aren't applying for jobs anymore. So sourcing, poaching, and really leaning on a lot of deep discovery on the internet and finding people is the way that you're going to find top performers.
I think a lot of lawyers, partners often feel their employees aren't accountable for their work assignment, don't feel invested in the firm. What can you do to help a law firm where they feel like the employees just aren't invested in the success of the firm and aren't really accountable for their own work performance?
I love that question. I don't see that anymore in this day and age. It is very rare that I meet someone or place someone that is not invested in the firm and don't embrace accountability. It's actually quite the opposite. So, if that's your experience, you might want to go back and look at what type of framework you put in place
Right.
in regards to that, because people are leaving law firms right and left because at the end of the day you're hiring human beings, not human doings. People want to be, and COVID taught us this more than anything. People really were forced to sit on their couch, take stock of their life as a whole, personally, professionally, spiritually, health, all the things. And they realize, and I want to really celebrate social media and everything out there because all the resources that we started pouring into, you every where you spend your time, you spend your most waking hours at work, and you want to be part of something. You want to be a difference maker. You want to make impact and, yes, income. But in my experience, it is not the case. I do not find people that don't want to be accountable. They love a culture of accountability. I would say 9 out of 10 of the law firms that I work with, that's number one in their core values. It is, we are a culture of accountability and responsibility.
Very good. I know so many lawyers want to grow their practice and maybe move into different areas. What suggestions do you have for law firm owners who want to grow their business, grow their practice, and perhaps grow into different areas?
So when you say grow into different areas, I hear that quite often from people. Maybe they're doing litigation and they want to move more into transactional work or what have you. First and foremost, I would say number one, what's your definition of growth? Get really clear on that, and it needs to be the holistic picture. If it's all just about money, and you're going to be bloody and bruised and exhausted and frustration, isn't really truly growth for you. So getting rid, that's the first question I'll ask of, what is your definition of growth? What does it look like? Like, tell me what your weekly ideal week looks like, your time template. How much are you spending on visionary work? How much are you spending on coaching and leading your team? How much time are you spending on actual client work and attorney work? And what are
Which
you
is
doing
they're
for
spending 120% of their time on client work and nothing on visionary and firm communications. I'm exaggerating, but that's often the problem. They just feel like they have so much work to do, billable targets, and that's where they spend all the time. And that's part of the problem, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I would say don't even think about adding a practice area because you're running from versus running to. So get really clear on what's not working for you, because if you want to grow and you're already sitting in that place, you're just going to double your stress and burnout. So getting clear on what parts are not working, and it might be your practice area. As I said in the beginning, I am incredibly passionate about estate planning, elder law, and asset protection, by and large, because it is a practice that the attorney has full control of. They're not dealing with court, opposing counsel, many different factors that are out of their control. So people will call me every single day and they're like, I need to get out of criminal defense. I want to do estate planning or what have you, or I need to get out of PI. And they ask them those deep questions of like, why? Because what do you love about criminal defense? What do you love about being in the courtroom, what have you? Because you're not going to get that in estate planning. Yes, you're going to buy back your time. Yes, you're going to make all the money that you want. You tell me you want to go from 2 million to 5 million. I can make that happen in any practice area, but not if you're not going to change your ways and get really clear about what you're going to start saying no to. This quote, I forget what it is, but one of my favorite quotes is, it's not what you say yes to, it's what you say no to.
That's a good saying. What do you do to help the law firm leaders who really don't know how to lead in a constructive way, and whose employees aren't as engaged as they should be because of the law firm leadership? What are some good leadership tactics or approaches to help law firm owners become more effective leaders of their firms?
I love that question. I get it so often. It's interesting because I don't know, probably about a year ago, I saw this big conference going on about how to manage and lead a team. And all these attorneys were on Facebook and LinkedIn and tagging each other. And they're like, this is the best workshop ever. I'm like, this is not the highest use of your time. Meaning that every lawyer I talk to, they say I stink at management, I stink at leadership. They didn't teach us this in law school. How do I get better with it? I'm like, well, your goal is not to become a better manager and leader. If that was the case, you'd be applying for a general manager position at Chili's. You're a visionary, you're a lawyer, you're an entrepreneur. Your job is not to become a better manager and leader. In fact, what it is to empower someone on your team to step into that role. You might not have the budget for a CEO or what, but there are sleeping giants all over your law firm that have this skill set. They just need your knowledge to be able to apply it in how you want your practice to run. Your job is just to become a really good visionary and coach. So let's burn the boats on becoming a better manager and leader. You need to switch your mindset to have your vision very clear and communicated, and have available time for your team to communicate what you want in regards to your process, your production, your people, the client experience, and allow them to lead it. You hold the vision, you share the vision, you make yourself available for your team to provide redirection, direction, coaching, and 2 millimeter shifts. And that's all you need to do.
You've used that phrase a couple times, 2 millimeter shifts. What do you mean by that?
So often I will hear from people, it's like, we need to change, we need to transform, we need to grow, we need to scale, what have you. I'm like, let's take a look at what's in front of us. It is about making that literally Tony Robbins, I think, coined that term of the 2 millimeter shift. Employees can get behind that versus we're going to change everything. That is overwhelming and it doesn't provide any strategy. So right now, here's what's not working on our intake process, or here's what's not working on the attorney's 120-hour process. What is the 2 millimeter that we can change? We'll move the consultation from 2 hours to 90 minutes. How can we accomplish that goal and get you 30 minutes per appointment back so you can go to the restroom, you can be available for your team to do it starts at the top. And what can we do to get the space for the attorney? So it's not about revamping. These words like transformation, revamping, change management are really overwhelming and daunting. It's almost like how to eat an elephant one bite at a time.
So, Molly, fill me in on exactly what you do. Like, who are your ideal clients? What do you do for them? And what results happen as a result in the legal field?
Yeah. So my ideal clients are solo with at least one employee, or at least the willingness to take the courageous jump to hire. So solo boutiques, small law firms, mid-size, is my ideal client.
Huh.
Because I like to be connected to the heartbeat of the business. I like to take the vision that you were promised when you walked out of law school, when you hung your own shingle that you envisioned in day one, and bring that back to reality and make it to that place and then help you grow and scale. So those are my ideal clients, no particular practice area. By and large, I love working with transactional attorneys because unless if they have a litigation firm, they have a CEO or a PLA, professional law firm administrator, or somebody at the helm to carry out their vision. Because it's a constant fits and starts and fits and starts, and they don't get the freedom that they really envisioned and deserve. So that's really who I love to work with. What I do is I have three sides of my practice. Number one, I have my consulting side, which is 12-week program, the 66-day law firm turnaround. And I like to get in and get out and don't make you codependent on me, but interdependent for the team members. Number two, I do flat fee retained search recruiting. So placement from anywhere from a receptionist all the way to a partner, in addition to overseas, has been incredibly popular to leverage a lot of the legal assistance that they need, and highly profitable. So I'm a big fan of flat fee. I don't do commission based. I think I'm the only recruiter out there that does flat fee because I want to work for you and find you the best candidates for the right amount of money. And and then I do a 6-month onboarding process with that. And then the third side is my law firm admin boot camp and academy, which I'm incredibly passionate about, where I tell the team or tell the attorneys, give me your team. Allow me to empower them, to educate them, to train them into becoming what I call legal leaders, leading legal leaders.
And what does that look like? How does that program work?
So so they join, we kick off with the owner operator or whoever's in charge we kick off with the 1 hour VIP session. We create this strategic plan of where they want improvements in. By and large, it's intake, reception, client service coordinator, marketing, and then post-production, post-engagement. So we work on people, process, and production, which impacts profitability. And then the team go through my 12-week foundational program. I have a very methodical program where they go through it for 12 weeks. And then they come to open coaching hours every Thursday. I call it open coaching and growing hour every Thursday. So they come, they talk about what's working, what's not working, where they need that 2 millimeter shift, where they're having a breakdown, where they need a breakthrough, things that nature. Every Friday, the attorney gets, I know how busy they are, they get a 3 to 5 minute video from me with a recap. Here's what your team learned. Here's what you should expect. And here's what we need from you, which is basically available time, available eyes, and available direction from you for them to be able to implement the tools I teach.
Oh, and do you see that makes a real difference? Your program, is it successful with your clients?
Absolutely. Indeed. And my favorite thing is when it's week one and the attorney is so incredibly busy and they walk into Monday morning and their team members are standing there. They have an agenda, they have KPIs, they have reporting, and they have a state of the union of the calendar. A saying in law firm admin boot camp is so go the calendar, so go cash flow. And they're showing up like CEOs. And I'll literally get texts, emails, boxers from attorneys saying, I don't know what you did to my team, but thank you. I finally feel like they have my back. And probably 7 out of 10 times, people will call me and they're like, my team, they don't care. They don't get it. They don't have it in their bones. They're not empowered. They're not profitable. They're not productive. And I say, tell me how much time you spend with them. Tell me what their KPIs are. Tell me what your reporting looks like. And they can't. And I'm like, I bet my bottom dollar they're just sitting there waiting for you to actually give them permission, authority, and responsibility to start leading the day-to-day for you. Give them to me. Let me see. I'll tell you in 30 days if, and it's very rare that I'm like, this person needs to go. They just don't get it.
You talk about KPIs, and I'm familiar with that term, of course. What are the most important KPIs for the law firm? owner, leader, manager to track for the firm and for his staff?
KPIs sell this buzzword now, right?
Right.
Key performance indicators. It's very different for every role, but every role, right down to the receptionist, has key performance indicators daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual. So it's not a one size fits all answer, but an exercise. I can invite your attorneys and owner operators to really do, if they're swimming in confusion and overwhelm of how to start this, really to empower your team. Start at the front of the house. Most attorneys or most law firm owners start with their attorneys and paralegals. They believe they're the only revenue generators. In law firm admin boot camp, I say start at the front of the house, which is your receptionist, your intake, your client service coordinator, because that is the most important KPI first and foremost. Tracking exactly how many leads we get a day, tracking where they came from, tracking what the conversion rate was from initial phone call, getting them into step one in your process, initial consultation, paid, unpaid. Most people just track from phone call to hire. There are 7 different KPIs before hire, because the hire rate is the attorney or the paralegal or non-attorney salesperson's KPI. But that measuring stick is probably you're missing so much money. The average receptionist in my program generates $25,000 additional revenue, and I have a guarantee on that with just owning their KPIs. They understand their director of first impression. They know how to handle intake. They know how to do follow up, and they are ruthless and unwavering about the calendar and the reporting that they generate every single Monday. They are tracking every single solitary metric for PNCs, prospective new clients, existing clients, which is the biggest metric. Most people do not track existing clients calling into the law firm. What's the saying? If a client's calling us, we're in trouble. They should never be calling us saying, where's blah, blah, blah? Where are we at with blah, blah, blah? Because then we've already broken the relationship and the trust. We should over communicate with the client. So when we're tracking how many existing clients are calling into the law firm daily, every single day in the daily huddle, they're like 14 clients called in, and 10 of them were for PI, whatever, 4 of them were about the family law. We're like, time out. Let's go back to the family law department. Let's go back to the personal injury department, and let's do a workshop and figuring out why clients are calling us, because there's a breakdown in communication, expectations, process, and production. And I love it when they start tracking it. Week 1, 14 calls a day, give or take. By week 2, they're down to 5 calls a day. Week 3, they're hovering around 3 calls a day from existing clients,
Oh, from
because we've
existing
made
clients.
those changes, which impacts the production to serve new clients and keeps the paralegals and the associate attorneys and legal assistants. They're not playing communication ping pong. Every time I have a quick question, the average quick question phone call is 45 minutes long. We all know this.
Right. So a change might be having better continuing communication with the client, so they don't need to call for an update or a status, things such as that.
Again, going back to the debrief. So in every single meeting, we debrief. Okay, debrief. Let's clarify and verify. Client, here's what you can expect from us. Here's what we can expect from you. When you walk out of here, you're going to have 14 questions that pop in your head, what have you. Our next status update meeting is going to be in 1 week. You're going to meet with legal assistant Joni, what have you. Here's a branded journal for you. Every time you have a question, when you watch a commercial, you go to church, your neighbor says blah, blah, blah about your case and what have you, just write it down here. And when you meet with Joni in 2 weeks for your 15-minute status update, you can handle all those on the appointment. It works beautifully. People behave how you train them. Most people, pay attention to this for your listeners. When you leave a meeting or end an email or a phone conversation, how does everybody end it? Let me know if you have any questions. Just give us a call. We're training people to call us all the time. So finding new language and verbiage of how to end an email, how to end a conversation, how to end a
What's the
meeting.
better way to end the email? Because right, what you said is a typical end. What's a better way?
Yep. So it's never let us know if you have any questions you reference back to that next meeting. Next Monday, you're getting your case status update, what have you, and you're going to meet with Susie. I'm a huge fan of batching and giving clients, especially for long drawn out processes, if it's a highly contested family law case or it's a very highly litigated nursing home abuse case, whatever it might be, it's worth it to have a legal assistant or a client success coordinator do a weekly update with them. So batch your questions, save them, write them in the journal, and bring them to the next step in the process. And this brings us back to process. You always want to have safety nets everywhere around your process. Doesn't have to be dependent on the lawyer, doesn't have to be dependent on the paralegal. It is worth everybody's time and dollars to invest in a client success coordinator, a legal assistant of some sort that is client facing that can really be that buffer between the attorneys and the paralegals. Clients love it.
It's funny. I don't know many law firms that have those scheduled meetings or consultations with clients on a regular basis. They're lucky if they send periodic updates, but that's really, really a good process. And I love, Molly, how you help law firms get more efficient, get more engaged. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'd assume some staff might be resistant to all this tracking and KPIs, but it sounds like your experience is they really buy in and they're more motivated and engaged.
There's definitely resistance in the beginning, and there's resistance in anything that's new. It's how you deliver it. Number one, it's not coming from a place of lack of trust or micromanaging. So it's in a way for you to feel empowered in your role, understand the beginning, the middle, the end, and the why of what you do, what we do, and how we do what we do. So there is resistance. I get a tremendous amount of resistance on all this tracking and reporting. And I'm like, just play along with me. Let's just have fun with this because the buy-in. So you have to communicate what's in it for them. Way back when they call it WIFMs and but the why of what's in it for you, receptionist, number one, you will feel confident when you get an angry client on the phone. You will understand how to handle processes and things of that nature. You will have tracking when your head's exploding, that attorneys are dumping everything to scan and to get FedEx and what have you on your desk, but you're getting 14 phone calls a day and you're understanding how do I cut these down from existing clients when I'm not getting enough initial consultations, everybody's stressed out with money. We're all busy. Our calendars are full, but we have no money in the bank. You can be the solution for I always train the receptionist in every position. Just think of it like a Dora Explorer that you're going on you got the backpack, you got the map, and you're trying to figure out where the pot of gold is for everybody. And so it's really exciting. And like your position's the most important position in this law firm right now. Do you want to show up as everyday hero? And for you, how great would it be to show up at the weekly meeting and to have data analytics, facts and information versus emotions to calm down the stress and to give proposed solutions. And it's really speaking into their listening in a way that makes a difference for them to get buy-in. And it's not that I want you to track everything because it sounds like lack of trust and micromanaging. But what's in it for you as the employee in each position?
Wow.
And then they love it.
What I love about what you do, which to me is really kind of unique, so much the focus, I think, is on the lawyers and the managers.
Yes.
And your focus is kind of unique because you're focusing on the support staff and their process and their engagement. And I don't hear that talked about very much. I think it's a very valuable role. And for those of
Mhm.
you who are listening, I think you really should. If you feel like you're having struggles with your staff, you feel like folks aren't part of the team or working for you the way you want, maybe it's a problem that can be fixed. And maybe someone like Molly can really help you with that.
Oh, I would love it.
Molly, thank you so much for being here today. You've been simply amazing. I love your insights and your unique approach and really facing the issue of the staff and looking at it from the bottom up and really helping them to be key contributors who are happy and engaged and productive.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Molly, for those who would like to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do, how can they best find you?
Best way would be go to my website, hiringandempowering.com. You could subscribe to our list. I do not spam, I do not sell. Every Tuesday, I drop a value add podcast. Every Thursday, I drop a value add blog, always speaking into the listening of the employee and employer and having both perspectives. And every Saturday morning, I drop a 3 to 5 minute pocket coaching.
Very good. Well, Molly, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And thank you all for listening and being here today. We're glad you were here and got to hear some amazing thoughts from Molly McGrath. Thanks again. And as always, please be well, be safe, and be free. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Free Lawyer Podcast. Wherever you are listening, if you enjoyed what I shared, please leave me a rating and review. I would appreciate hearing more about what you like best and what topics you might like me to cover in future episodes. If you are interested in experiencing a more fulfilling and a more successful life, please contact me at www.garymiles.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me so I can learn more about you, your challenges, and your dreams. I appreciate each and every one of you and have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all of you for your support.